Hello, everybody, and welcome to Technology Today. Today is July 21st, 2024. It's Season 1, Episode 22. I am Merwat, and that is the Sentient AI's visualizer.
Good evening, ohmTown citizens. Welcome to Technology Today.
Trying to
Can't
see,
catch me.
I was trying to see where my finger gets chopped off by the green screen. For science. Anyway, so welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about hopping robots, aliens in Venetian clouds, walking balloons on Titan, shadowing a skyscraper-sized asteroid, inside a Martian rock, laser solving plastic problem, cancer turns off key gene to grow, rural belts around cities, intensive farming ups pandemic risk, and Crowdstrike outage can cause trust issues. Not trust issues. Everything's powered by ohmTown.com. Go over and become a citizen, and you can do some neat little things once you're over there. Like make lists, make comments. You can hide articles that you're not interested in seeing ever again until you look at your hidden list. And save stuff for later discussion and things like that. There's always more news that's being aggregated over there. I use ohmTown.com to be my information overload manager. So can you. Again, everything's powered by ohmTown.com. So let's just jump right on into the articles. We're going to try and... We've got 10 articles all lined up. The first article is in the mobile channel, a hopping robot. And every time I say that, I'm like, hoping robot?
Well, I don't see those terms together very often.
Ever since AI, now hopping is everywhere. I mean, hoping is there. Oh my gosh, I just don't know anymore. So I hope, doggone it, now I'm messing myself up. A hopping robot could explore Europa using locally harvested water. Various forms of hopping robots have crept into development for use in different space exploration missions. The latest rover has been canceled for some derpy reason. Like, oh, we need to save money. I don't know. Billionaire.
But hey, we don't need to save the planet or anything.
No, we don't need to understand anything. We just need to pay taxes. But a study funded by NASA's Institute for Advanced Concepts, or NIAC, in 2018, planned a mission to a type of world where hopping may not be as noticeable as an advantage. Europa may not be as noticeable an advantage. But
so do we normally do most of our rovers hop?
No, none of our robots.
As they're moving around?
Yeah, none of them. No, they all roll. So Andy Tomaswick over at Universe Today put the article together, and so yeah, the article here has an artist depiction of what looks like a drone flying hopping robot standing next to a hopping robot.
It looks like it has a face on it.
Yeah, that right there. I wish they'd stop doing that. They have a mouse over effect that drives me nuts. But a study funded by NASA's Institute for Advanced Concepts in 2018 planned a mission to a type of world where hopping may not be as noticeable an advantage. Wouldn't hop... I don't get what they're saying here, but okay.
I feel like it's got an extra negative in here.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they're trying to get toward it.
They want it to be an advantage. Hopping may be a noticeable advantage because they're building a steam-propelled autonomous retrieval robot for ocean worlds, or Sparrow. It's about the size and shape of a soccer ball with the logic, power, and control systems inside a spherical outer hollow shell. That's that right there. It looks like a drone. That's what I called it. Sparrow wouldn't be able to operate on its own, however. It would require a lander to deposit it onto the surface and serve as a refueling and sample collection storage base, which just makes sense. That's what the regular rovers are now. Europa Clipper, the only currently planned NASA mission to the icy moon, would have been good for hitching a ride, but its lack of a lander made it unsuitable for Sparrow. Not quite sure why. They could have just dropped it into a... Well, I mean, it would need to land and refuel and stuff like that, so it needs a lander. However, the hopping robot itself is well suited for the environment in Europa. Its designers intended to make it terrain agnostic, meaning that it could traverse even the harshest terrain the icy moon could throw at it.
I did look up to see if sparrows, the birds, hop, and they do.
Oh, yeah. Wow, they worked really hard to get that parody, didn't they? Steam-propelled autonomous retrieval robot for ocean worlds. That's interesting. I think most birds hop when they're on the ground, though. Little hops, hop, hop, hop. So maybe sparrows are actually well known for that?
Yeah, I don't know. I just was curious about that because I thought then it would have another layer.
Gotcha. So the lander accompanying Sparrow would have to mine ice off the surface and then heat it and store it as water. And when Sparrow returned, it would use the fuel or the water to refuel, since it'll probably be like a hydrogen type of fueled system. So yeah, that's one of the objectives, is to build this little hopping robot that'll fly off, collect a sample, hop back. I don't know how it would be picked up. I think the little arm, the little grabber right here would just pick it up and set it somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know. But I'm sure that's part of it, right? Because they don't want to send something out that they can't get back.
Get back, sure. So no work is planned to solve these problems for now, as the project is yet to receive phase 2 funding from NIAC, and work on it appears to have stalled. So this article is basically speculation that it's going to go anywhere. Want to keep moving?
Let's do it.
So the next article is over in Non Sequitur News. Aliens may live in Venus's clouds, astrophysicists say. There's medicine for that. In Newsweek.com, the article was published by Jess Thompson. Phosphine gas and ammonia gas have been detected in the planet's thick, with a K, hot atmosphere. According to some preliminary data, astrophysicists announced at the Royal Astronomical Society's National Astronomy meeting in England on Wednesday. It's very hard to say all these big scientific words.
Well, and they don't abbreviate anything in here.
No.
I
can
mean,
say it better.
So, okay, it's automatically aliens, right?
Automatically aliens. So both of these gases cannot easily be explained by atmospheric or geological phenomena on Venus, meaning that they could be possible biosignatures. Preliminary analysis of the new observations with a new receiver on the James Clerk Maxwell Telescope, the JCMT. Really? Is that, have you ever? It's always been
not
JWS.
Familiar with that one.
It's JWST, right? This is James Clerk Maxwell Telescope, not the James Webb Telescope.
Right, you're thinking of the Webb.
Yeah. So, taken as part of the JCMT Venus project, has confirmed the presence of phosphine and are hinting at larger amounts closer to the clouds. So, at the same time, observations with the Green Bank Telescope, or GBT, are at longer radio wavelengths, are hinting at the presence of ammonia on Venus's atmosphere as well. So, preliminary findings say about 96.5% of carbon dioxide. So, it's the atmosphere is composed primarily of 96.5% carbon dioxide, followed by 3.5% nitrogen, and trace amounts of sulfur dioxide, water vapor, and carbon monoxide. Higher at the temperature.
I know what we could do with all our carbon dioxide on Earth.
Send it over to Venus.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. So they're possible biosignatures, since producing these compounds of phosphorus for phosphine and nitrogen for ammonia in the oxidizing atmosphere of Venus is very difficult for normal known chemical processes. On Earth, these two gases are largely produced by life or human industry, and phosphine has been suggested as a biomarker for planets orbiting other stars. There you go. Life is on Venus. Wait. Isn't it men are from Mars, women are from Venus?
Oh, right. It must be all women.
It's all women over there. So we have a lot of data from GCMT Venus to process and digest before we can put the redetection of phosphine on a solid footing. Ditto ammonia. That's the clinical scientific term. Ditto ammonia, says Clements.
Have you ever seen that in a scientific article? I have not.
Only for Newsweek. They use special lingo. Whether these gases are traces of far-off life or not, these findings have excited the astronomical community. Let's go on. Next article. Moving on. Next article is in Mobile. A walking balloon could one day explore Titan or Earth's seafloor. Novel ways to move on other celestial bodies always draw the attention of space exploration community. Here at UT, we've reported on everything from robots, but it's from Phys.org, by the way. Everything from robots that suspend themselves from the walls of Martian caves to robots that hop using jets of locally mined gas. But we haven't yet reported on the idea of a balloon that walks. So this is how you end up with aliens. Andy Thomaswick from Universe Today put this article together. They got a picture of what amounts to equally buoyant, a neutrally buoyant balloon, kind of using little legs to walk along the
little cubes, right? That could kind of maneuver it along. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with the walking balloon and the hopping rover. I mean, we could get a whole parade going here.
That's right, a menagerie. But that is the idea behind balloon locomotion for extreme terrain, or ballet. They worked really hard for that because the BAL in balloon is used for the first BAL in ballet.
They didn't like the first term, blet.
Blet. You have to say it like that too. Blet. So what project are you working on? Blet. So it's a project from Hari Nayar, a principal roboticist at NASA's JPL, and his colleagues. How exactly does the balloon walk, you might ask? By picking up and moving one of its 6 legs. Ballet's architecture involves a positively buoyant balloon supporting 6 feet attached to adjustable cables. The feet are small science packages capable of taking small surface samples or analyzing the chemical composition of the part of the surface that it touches. They should have said something like, there's an insect that tastes the ground, and like flies, I think, taste the ground with their legs. That's basically what this
they could have used the same terminology here.
Yeah, flexible, lightweight, extreme. No, well, I don't know what you'd have to come with fly, so FLY. What would the Y be? I don't know.
Yesterday. You can't think of a Y word.
Why are we doing this to ourselves? Each foot is attached to 3 cables individually controlled by pulleys. When a foot is done doing its science work at a given location, ballet retracts the cables for the foot, lifting it off the surface, and then it extends the cables using different lengths for the cables to place the foot in a new location, and then it just slowly moves forward. There's a video here about NASA owing a lot to balloons, but we're not going to play that video. So it has so many interesting places to explore, including cryovolcanoes and methane lakes. Ballet would allow traversal over even some of the most difficult terrain without accounting for considerations that would dramatically affect the capabilities of either a rover or a helicopter, such as the planned Dragonfly mission. Yeah, because really long cables means it essentially has really long legs, and if it wants to climb something, it can just shorten those cables. Totally makes sense. I mean...
Right, it seems like it's going to be like one of those creepy robots that can go on any terrain.
Yeah, and make it do it really fast, so it's really damn creepy.
Oh, right, exactly.
The only thing that I have a problem with is all it will take is in that atmosphere, something zipping through the atmosphere and punching a hole in it, and it's done. Yep, it's going to sound like one of those...
Or through the cables.
Sure, yeah. But if it hits the balloon, then it'll make that sound as it flies off.
And you know they'll be listening in NASA going, what is that?
Aliens. Either that or yeast. So there are still like Venus-sized yeast. You know, because they toot. Anyway, There are still plenty of design considerations, although such as the difficulty of controlling all the different cables, balloon orientation, length for 18 cables, pathfinding, all of that simultaneously. Yeah, I think it's going to be a hot mess, but I guess I can give it a try. For science, and let's go. All right.
Absolutely.
I think it looks cool as an idea. It would be funny to see this thing walking across Venus, though.
And kind of scary if you didn't know it was there.
Or Titan. I mean, for whatever reason, I kept thinking Venus, but they actually say Titan.
I mean, they like to hop on Venus.
Right. I'm sorry. I got it all mixed up. Hey, before I move on to the next article, if you want to get today's show notes, all you have to do is hit ! No, really, Merwat! ! TT. And that will pull up all of the show notes for today's show. And if you want the podcast, you hit ! Pod. And if you want all of the syntax for all of the show notes, you hit ! Show notes. And that will give you the command necessary to pull the show notes for each of our shows. We only have one more show after that, and after this, and that's 4-Wheel Tech. But this article here, the European Space Agency will follow a skyscraper-sized asteroid as it flies past Earth. About 1,230 feet across, the Apophis asteroid is slightly smaller than the Empire State Building. On April 13th, 2029, that skyscraper-sized rock will approach Earth, and the European Space Agency plans to shadow it. The ESA, they should put a little GPS thing on it. The ESA.
Although we know space GPS isn't that good yet.
Not yet. I mean, if you're going to build a space GPS. So the ESA has announced the Rapid Apophis mission for space safety, or RAMSES. Oh man, why did they have to give it like this really exotic name? RAMSES. A planetary defense mission. Wow. So the plan is to have a spacecraft reach Apophis in early 2029 and follow it during the flyby. This would require quick action for an April 2028 launch. Scientists discovered Apophis in 2004. Sure. Okay. We'll say you did. And it wasn't until 2021 that NASA confirmed. There had been talk about this almost at a let's just say in conspiratorial tones. Apophis was known. So Sarah Fielding from Engadget.com put this article together. Apophis asteroid will reach within 20,000 miles of Earth in April 2029. 20,000.
Well, I hope they're planning to intercept. Or are they just gonna follow it?
I guess they're gonna follow it. But this is pretty wild. 20,000 miles is less than the circumference of the planet.
Yeah, it's actually pretty close, even though it doesn't sound like it.
I mean, it's really close. Danger close, even.
It says less than 1/10 of the moon's proximity.
Man, this is freaky. So according to the ESA, objects this size only get as close as Apophis will about every 5,000 to 10,000 years, providing a rare opportunity to study an asteroid and how to avoid one colliding with Earth without needing to travel deep into space. How about we don't need to worry about it if it's deep into space?
Right, and I hope we've calculated correctly, right? We think we're studying it, and then we're like, getting closer.
Yeah.
It's getting closer.
A reconnaissance mission would be the first would be launched first to analyze the incoming asteroid's orbit and structure. The results would be used to determine how best to redirect the asteroid or to rule out non-impacts before an expensive deflector mission is developed. Deflector mission. NASA, in turn, will follow the aftermath of Apophis's flyby. The space agency is using the spacecraft from last year's OSIRIS-REx mission, which collected samples from the Bennu asteroid, for a new mission, OSIRIS-APEX. This is what we've already did, though. The spacecraft should reach Apophis about 1 month after the asteroid reaches its closest distance to Earth. The OSIRIS Apex mission is meant to study any physical changes that Apophis undergoes due to Earth's gravitational pull, such as quakes or landslides. The hope is to get a look at what exists beneath its surface. Individuals in parts of Europe, Africa, and Asia should also be able to see Apophis with the naked eye.
Interesting. So they're basically letting Apophis go by and then looking at it.
Yep. Yeah, there's no more story here. So let's keep moving. The next article is over in the Mobile channel. NASA's Curiosity rover discovers a surprise in a Martian rock. They basically rolled over some rock and it cracked open and showed elemental sulfur. This is an article over at phys.org by NASA. They have pictures, and you can barely make out the yellow.
Right, like the yellow color. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And while other other composites of sulfur have been found, elemental sulfur only happens in a certain method, so pressure and heat. So it isn't clear what relationship, if any, the elemental sulfur has with other sulfur-based minerals in the area. But what happened was the rover rolled over it, it cracked open, they took a sample from another rock, found elemental sulfur. What it means, who knows? They're actually not really coming out and saying what it is. Curiosity found a lot of it, an entire field of bright rocks that looked similar to the one that the rover crushed. And all of this has like air pockets in it. So whatever it is, it's from something molten and or depositionally through it, kind of filtered through something that made it porous.
Like a liquid or something?
Yeah, it formed in a liquid pool. That's my expectation. They say Curiosity captured this close-up image of a rock nicknamed Snow Lake on June 8th. Finding a field of stones made of pure sulfur is like finding an oasis in the desert. It shouldn't be there, so now we have to explain it. It's one of several discoveries Curiosity has made while offloading within Gediz Vallis Channel, a groove that winds down part of the 3-mile tall Mount Sharp, the base of which the rover has been ascending since 2014. Each layer of the mountain represents a different period of Martian history. Curiosity's mission is to study where and when the planet's ancient terrain could have provided the nutrients needed for microbial life, if any ever formed on Mars. I don't know if they'll find it in elemental sulfur, but...
Did I understand that correctly? It's been climbing for 10 years?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, it doesn't move very fast. Yeah. It's basically been at the bottom of a wash, I think. So scientists think that the channel was carved by flows of liquid water and debris that left a ridge of boulders and sediment extending 2 miles down the mountainside below the channel, and the goal has been to develop a better understanding of how this landscape changed billions of years ago. And while recent clues have helped, there's still much to learn from the dramatic landscape. I agree. There's a lot. So all of this evidence of water continues to tell a more complex story than the team's early expectations, and they've been eager to take a rock sample from the channel in order to learn more. On June 18th, they got their chance. While the sulfur rocks were too small and brittle to be sampled with the drill, a large rock nicknamed Mammoth Lakes was spotted nearby, and the rover engineers had to search for a part of the rock that would allow safe drilling and find a parking spot on the loose sloping surface. So apparently they did exactly that.
I mean, they need to send OSIRIS Apex over there.
Just send a manned mission. Just come on. I mean, sure, there's somebody going to be out there that's like really gung-ho to do this. You know, no guts, no glory. Let's keep moving. The next article is how lasers could solve the world's plastic problem. A team has created a laser technique to break down tough plastics into valuable components, offering a new, sustainable approach to tackling plastic or global plastic pollution. The article is from the University of Texas at Austin. It's published over at scitechdaily.com. these are pretty cool. This laser table, you basically screw in little mirrors and sensors and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is neat.
Trying to see what they said here. A global research team led by Texas engineers has developed a laser-based method to decompose the molecules in plastic and other materials into their fundamental components for future reuse. The discovery, which involves laying these materials on top of two-dimensional materials called transition metal, what?
Maybe dichalcogenides.
Dichalcogenides? Dichalcogenides. I'd have to get used to saying that phrase. Interesting. You can make it up from the parts of this, but I'm not sure. And then lighting them up as the potential to improve how we dispose of plastics that are nearly impossible to break down in today's technologies. By harnessing these unique reactions, we can explore new pathways for transforming environmental pollutants into valuable reusable chemicals. So I suppose the laser is going to turn them from a solid into a gas, and then they capture the gas.
Okay, I wonder if there are any byproducts.
This discovery has significant implications for addressing environmental challenges. They talk about plastic pollution. The researchers use low power light to break the chemical bonding of the plastic and create new chemical bonds that turn the materials into luminescent carbon dots. Carbon-based nanomaterials are in high demand because of their many capabilities, and these dots could potentially be used as memory storage devices in next generation computer devices. Yeah. So potential for broader applications. The specific reaction is called CH activation, where carbon hydrogen bonds in an organic molecule are selectively broken and transformed into a new chemical bond. In this research, the two-dimensional materials catalyzed this reaction that led to hydrogen molecules morphing into a gas. That cleared the way for carbon molecules to bond with each other to form the information storing dots. This is kind of surreal kind of a thing. Interesting. So basically they're turning it into these little carbon nanodots, but what is when they use that energy, it kicks some energy off. So what is it? It's a gas, but
Right,
what is
what's
that
being
gas?
off-gassed?
Yeah. Interesting. They say maybe hydrogen? I don't know.
I mean, if it was something like just pure hydrogen, that might be okay, but what if it's something else?
Yeah. And it doesn't really go into detail about it. So it just says that the light-driven CH activation process demonstrated in the study can be applied to many long-chain organic compounds, including polyethylene and surfactants commonly used in nanomaterial systems. So basically adding energy to change it into something else. Yep. All right, let's keep moving though. The next article is over in Reality Hacker. Pancreatic cancer turns off a key gene in order to grow. We've talked about this, hinted at its existence in other podcasts, other shows today, and in previous shows. New research finds how one of the world's most aggressive cancers is able to spread so quickly. That's pancreatic cancer. We actually talked about pancreatic cancer in particular in a previous episode because somebody was diagnosed late with pancreatic cancer, and it was already beyond survivability apparently.
Yeah, it was the article about the AI increased cancer diagnoses being used in the UK.
Yep, and this article is from Wired.com. And the original story appeared in Wired Italia and has been translated from Italian. The cancer is one of the most aggressive human diseases. This particular cancer, pancreatic cancer, turns off one of the most important genes in order to be able to grow and spread, according to new research published in the journal GastroHep Advances, has found. So it's yet undetected until only at an advanced stage when treatment options are limited. As a result, it has one of the worst survival rates, with more than half of patients dying within 3 months of diagnosis, which is exactly what happened with this late diagnosed patient. 3 months later, they passed away. In the study, the researchers looked at tumor and healthy tissue samples. In their analysis, they found that pancreatic cancer triggers a process known as DNA methylation, where molecules attach to the DNA and alter how the body reads it. In this case, the DNA methylation deactivates HFN4A, a gene that helps promote the proper function of many organs. With the gene switched off, cancer cells are then able to spread very rapidly. Loss of HNF4A drives the development and aggressiveness of pancreatic cancer, and we now know that it's related to poor patient survival. Kind of no shit news.
Right. But this is a big deal, knowing which gene is affected, because then they can perhaps do gene therapy on that
specific one, yeah, or block it from inactivation through DNA methylation.
Right.
Yeah. So I wonder what their next step might be. It just says the study gives us new information about how pancreatic cancer is able to suppress certain molecules to spread aggressively in the body, which in turn could lead to the development of more effective treatment options. I don't know how this couldn't, other than
right.
We know how it is, yet we don't know how to pick the lock, kind of a thing.
Right, like maybe we don't know enough about that gene, or we can't access it for some reason.
Yeah.
I also want to point out the stat here about the 80% of pancreatic cancer cases are detected after the disease is spread. So that's why it has such a bad survival rate.
Yeah, because they discover it, but not until after it's everywhere. And it's probably because there's more nebulous illnesses, and then they go, oh, well, this is actually indicative of pancreatic cancer. They assess the pancreas, and lo and behold, like a biopsy or something like that, and they find cancer cells. Yeah, that just sucks. And it's buried so deep that you have no idea that it's happening until it has a massively deleterious effect on the rest of the body. Okay, let's keep going. The next article is over on the Mobile Channel. Rural belts around cities could reduce urban temperatures by up to 0.5 degrees C, according to a study. The key to cooling urban heat islands may lie in the countryside, according to a new study published in the journal Nature Cities from the scientists at the University of Surrey in Southeast University, China. University of Surrey is the author of the article, but it's published at phys.org. Oof. That sun just looks hot.
Yeah, it does. Well, and I guess that was well chosen for this article.
Yep, it is it's a public Pixabay image. So Professor Shi Jai Kao, the senior author and visiting professor at the University of Surrey's Global Center for Clean Air Research, said, care. That's the name of the thing. They didn't say that. They said, we often focus on how green spaces, wetlands, or waterways can cool down cities, yet urban land is precious, and these measures can be hard to find space for. We have now shown how land use outside a city can make a big difference to temperatures downtown. Using 20 years of data, researchers showed how nearby rural areas could bring a city's temperature down, and the biggest cooling effects happen where the rural ring around a city extends for at least half the city's diameter. But isn't that what's outside the city? Or is it urban
Presumably,
sprawl?
But it could, yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of urban sprawl. This is the first study that I have seen that addresses outside of the city, right? It's always green spaces in the city, green spaces in the city.
So I wonder what it is that actually makes that happen. And actually, what's really funny is the moment that I said that, I was like, well, it has to be something that's all about driving warm air away from the location. So they say that as warm air rises in a city, it creates a layer of low pressure close to the ground. This sucks cooler air in from the surrounding rural areas. This process is greatly shaped by the size of a city and the land cover of neighboring rural areas. To find out exactly how, scientists compared the areas around 30 Chinese cities between 2000 and 2020, and satellite data told them how warm the ground was and how the land was used. So we had already suspected that belts of rural land around a city could help cool down. Now, thanks to the detailed analysis, we can say which forms and how much. Yeah.
Well, that's neat. And I think the other problem is even if you have rural near the city, you might not have it at least half of the ring around the city.
Yeah. So you gotta see, but it's weird. Like, maybe it's the urban sprawl part of it that I'm missing. Like, when does city turn into urban sprawl?
Well, and how much land cover do you need? Like, how much do you need surrounding compared to how much is inside? So, for example, a small city surrounded by rural is probably different than a, megalopolis or something surrounded by rural.
Yeah, because it has to be at least half the diameter of the city. So what happens when the city expands? You have to move that ring.
Right, but realistically, the rural is just often lost, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it will be. I mean, the city would have to be the owner of that land because it would have to prevent urban... Well, it would have to stop the city from intruding into the green space, which means the urban sprawl would have to be on the other side of the green space. And that would actually have to be...
Then it would need another ring, right?
Another ring, yeah. Yeah, and then it would look like Atlantis, the proverbial Atlantis, where it was concentric rings. Oh, wow, everything old is new again?
Maybe Atlantis is coming back.
Aliens. So the next article is over in Non Sequitur News. Yeah, moving on. So intensive farming may up pandemic risk. Myth-busting study warns. The pandemic risk posed by intensive farming is concerning, according to researchers. The article is over at newsweek.com. The article is by Pandora Dewan. And it says zoonotic diseases are those that spread from animals to humans and are of a major concern for public health. Scientists estimate that zoonotic infections account for 3 in every 4 new or emerging infectious diseases in humans, according to the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, which makes sense because we're not getting it out of the blue. We're getting it through animals that don't have much disease control and prevention because they're just animals. They can go, rummage wherever they want. The risks of emergence and transmission depend on multiple factors, including contact between humans and animals and how we use the land, says Steve Hinchcliffe, a professor at the University of Exeter in the UK, who said that in a statement. Versus what? I don't know.
I know. Did we have any confusion about the identity there?
It was sent in a message, not through ESP, mind control. Whoa.
Okay, I guess the show is coming to a good close.
Guess the show's over. Actually, what's really funny is there's only one more article after this. We're not ending the show just yet. I twitched. So anyway, traditionally, intensive farming has been thought to minimize disease transmission between wild and captive animals. However, according to new research by Hinchcliffe and his team, this perception is a myth. Now I have to reset that. Okay, I'll stop doing what I'm doing so that I don't cause that to actually kick off again. So another major cause for concern is the land clearance and resulting habitat disruption that is required to build many of the intensive livestock facilities. This displaces wild animals from their homes and increases the likelihood that they'll cross paths with humans and farm animals. After a thorough and holistic analysis, the team conclude that the effects of intensifying agriculture are at least uncertain and at worst may contribute to emerging infectious disease risk.
But also we're disrupting the rural rings around cities when we're doing this.
Yeah, so it's increasing the temperature, it's causing climate change, it's creating a hot zone
which is actually breeding bacteria and viruses, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. And what's really interesting, though, is that the oddball, more chaotic or...
rapidly mutating or...
Well, no. Because of the temperature fluctuations, a virus can survive longer in the cold because its protein coat hardens and it can survive a longer flight time. So if you have these really warm conditions, then they turn hot or cold. They're growing to a certain degree. They can grow in the heat. If it gets too hot, they die. But the moment that the temperature swings the other way, and if you have a 60-degree swing from 100 degrees to 40 degrees in one day, that warmed up virus suddenly hardens and can float longer distances, and then instead of it just dying on the vine, it makes it into somebody's nose, and then they're infected with a virus. So responding to their findings, co-author King Wing Ray Chan said, we need to reconsider the socio-cultural impacts of intensifying farm animal production on planetary health, environmental sustainability, and animal welfare issues. And the full paper can be found at the journal Royal Society Open Science. They have a link over at Newsweek, which I think is one of the first times I've actually seen their citation hard-coded in as a link.
Right, same here.
Pretty neat. All right. I mean, you put it all together, I bet you an AI would sit there and say, yep, you need to do this, 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 and this. And it's everything that we've been talking about today.
Exactly. Of course, people have to listen to it and, commit resources to it and policies.
Right. But they'll have to make me walk in a 15-minute city by forcing me, because it's un-American and anti-free. Never mind. I'm sorry. That's not what the show is about. So the final article for today is Microsoft Crowdstrike outage could spur a big tech trust reckoning and threaten tech giants' plans for AI. And I'm just going to come straight out of the gate hot and say, no way. People rely on
should,
tech.
But it won't.
Well, I mean, the problem here is that this was a simple mistake. Convergence is really the problem. Greed, mergers and acquisitions are the problem. But not the analysis by Anna Altschuk.
An AI isn't the problem, but
Yeah.
because these companies are running amok,
Right.
That's going to be a problem when they're focused on AI and nobody else has any AI footprint.
Oh yeah, and government is being vilified, even though a slow government means that something like this can't happen. Anyway, Anna Altschuk over at Business Insider put this article together. So everybody's freaking out about this CrowdStrike software issue that's caused by, it's not a global Microsoft IT outage, it's a CrowdStrike caused problem by which the CEO was actually part and parcel to two, including the CrowdStrike current one. Experts warn the incident highlights the fragility of tech systems and AI's potential risks. Again, it's because everything was converged and had poor failover. This is a learning moment, a teachable moment, wherein they can get things resolved by following best practices. A global kickoff of a new product, not new product, but a new patch without testing they did limited testing and they didn't fix it. So the massive IT outage that rocked companies around the world highlights just how deeply intertwined society and systems powering it are with big tech, and how a simple misstep can trigger widespread chaos. It also exposes the fragility of those systems. Yeah, basically CrowdStrike pushed in essentially because CrowdStrike was already authenticated, all they did was push a file. That file was poorly constructed and crashed every system, because when they rebooted, it ate itself because it runs as a forced bootload file. I'm not using technical terms because that's not what I do as a speaker about tech. Simply put,
you try to make it accessible to people.
Yeah, and meanwhile, there's a lot of people that are sitting there talking in big terms and deep tech, and even in this technology today, it's more about making it approachable, making it understandable, easily understood. And what happened was a file that was signed by Microsoft as safe accepted a file that wasn't signed acceptable as and tested as safe, and that caused the system to fail. And it's only people that are using the CrowdStrike platform within the Microsoft ecosystem. Software occurred because an update from the cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike on Friday basically broke the bootload system. Essentially, don't really need to know more about it other than there is a simple fix if you have physical access to it, which means that a whole lot of people were working overtime this weekend.
I bet that made a lot of people happy.
Yeah, delete a couple of files and bingo bango. Some people could reboot a bunch of times and the check system would delete the cached file. Maybe. So they're talking about AGI though in this. If a single bug can take down airlines, banks, retailers, media outlets, and more, what on earth would make you think that we're ready for AGI? Gary Marcus, an AI researcher and founder of Geometric Intelligence, a machine learning AI startup acquired by Uber in 2016, told Business Insider. And there's the problem right there. The damn AI startup was acquired by Uber, and they're complaining about AGI.
Right, but meanwhile, the problem is the mergers and acquisitions, right?
Right. There's so many companies using only one provider of a solution, CrowdStrike, that because everybody was using CrowdStrike, it brought down a large swath. There's only 25,000 companies, but it's mega corporations that are using CrowdStrike because they're the ones that can afford CrowdStrike. Mom and pop shops can't. Many institutions were untouched, unfazed by CrowdStrike because they can't afford the big ticket price of CrowdStrike. But CrowdStrike is a cyber defense contractor. So, of course, if you've got big money and you don't want your shareholders wetting the bed because you keep getting struck by 0-day breaches, you pay to play with CrowdStrike. And again, the CEO of CrowdStrike has been at the nexus of this before.
Yes, that should be something prominently noted on his resume.
Yeah, and honestly, nobody should be launching an update on a Friday. Nobody should be launching it en masse. It should be in phases so that you can see if unique hardware builds and network constructions causes an issue. It's absurd. So none of this should have happened, at least not to this large swath of customers. Anyway. So what I'm going to end up having to do is, so the rest of this stuff, they're talking about AI, right? Dan O'Dowd, founder of safety advocacy group The Dawn Project, has campaigned against Tesla's self-driving systems, told BI that the situation with CrowdStrike and Microsoft is a reminder that critical infrastructures are not secure enough or reliable enough. But that's because everybody thinks that it's somebody else's problem.
Well, exactly. And plus, guess who doesn't like things being really secure? Consumers, because then they can't use it or they think it's a hassle.
Yeah, they'll circumvent the security as much as they can. Humans are notoriously lazy, and so they're not interested in following policy and procedure. You need two-factor authentication, but you're not allowed to use your cell phone because it can be spoofed. So some of that's already been made apparent when it comes to AI, right? The pretty well most of the time, because there's a rush to get products to market concept, they wanted to get something out there, whatever it is. There must have been a 0-day exploit that they really wanted to push. Who knew that CrowdStrike itself was the 0-day exploit?
Exactly.
And don't get me wrong, I love CrowdStrike. I love the idea of, first moving, fix the problem, save infrastructure, save society literally from itself. But this shouldn't have happened, and following best practices would have avoided it. So it says companies have also taken turns announcing flashy new products and then delaying or rolling them back because they weren't ready, or when public launches reveal issues. OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, Adobe have all rolled back or delayed AI offerings this year. But it's because humans don't know how to use something appropriately. Whenever I say that, I get a message like, well, what do you call appropriate?
What's appropriate? I think there's some clear things that are not appropriate for anybody.
Something not abusive. How about not making deep fakes of high schoolers, for crying out loud? There's all kinds of stuff. But it's pretty damn obvious. And, when you walk into a kitchen and the dog has knocked over the trash can and you say, what the hell happened in here? And the dog sits there and buries its nose in the corner of your kitchen because it knows that it did wrong. If that's you and you're a human, you probably shouldn't have done what you've already done. So don't do it. Don't do what you're doing. But that's not what happens. If it isn't enumerated in an HR handbook, an ethical compass isn't stapled to their eyeball, nobody knows what they should do, apparently. Well, I can tell you.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Right. The cybersecurity domain would not exist if not for hackers just abusing things to see if they can abuse it. And you really don't want to get to a point where there is an administration that is violently defensive about its networks. Right now, if you hack, it's a slap on the wrist. Rarely do you go to jail. You'll get banned from banned from using computers or something like that. But for the most part, it's you pay the fine, you keep your nose clean, you'll be fine. If you do really bad stuff, then you're in serious trouble. If you use AI to make deepfakes, unless it's already enumerated in the law, there's no law. Some of this stuff already is. And so using a deepfake, using AI, you can run afoul of the law really quick. So the U.S. Department of State commissioned a risk assessment report on AI, which was published earlier this year, and the report indicated AI poses a high risk of weaponization. No shit. No golly. Which would take the form of biowarfare, mass cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, autonomous robots. Autonomous robots. Come on now.
They're coming for us.
Yep. Sentient AI from the future. The results could lead to catastrophic risks, including human extinction, the report said.
Okay. That's a bit of fear-mongering.
Just a little. You got to have some fear, uncertainty, and doubt to cause people to fund. So public trust in the institution has steadily declined for the past 5 years. It isn't self-fulfilling prophecy by people dragging up stuff that just isn't really real. According to the 2023 study by the Brookings Institution, a nonprofit public policy organization, this erosion in confidence is particularly pronounced in the technology sector. Big tech companies, including Facebook, Amazon, and Google, saw the sharpest drop in trust, with an average decline in confidence ratings of 13 to 18%, according to the Brookings Institute. So we are Facebook, Amazon, and Google. It isn't big tech. It's society's drop in trust in society, and it's because people aren't savvy. They're not reading the room. You need to be as street smart online as you are street smart in the street, and that's just not how it is. There aren't street smart people in the street either.
No, and I don't know. I mean, it's a combination, I think. The consumers aren't doing things well with the technology, and then the companies, I think, are pretty much unstoppable in some instances and doing some inappropriate things.
Yeah, because it's all about money. All right, folks, we're going to have to reboot technology today. We end up back at the front page. I'm going to say goodnight, and we're going to do Four Wheel Tech, the last show for tonight. I am Mayor Watt, and that is the Sentient AI from the future. Don't worry, next week we'll have some news as the week continues. See you in a little bit.
Good night, ohmTown citizens. Thanks for joining us for Technology Today.
Bye-bye. Oh, BSOD.